Hi guys, hi YouTubers, hi fellas.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We're just gonna hang on for about one more minute and let everybody jump on. Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar. We are talking about MDR Foundations today. My name is Erin Myers. I'm a Senior Manager of Product Marketing at BitDefender. I'm joined by Jade Montero. He's a Senior Director of Product Management. Brian Vasiloff, Vice President, North American Sales, and Richard Tallman, Senior Director, Worldwide MSP and Cloud Sales. Just to get logistics out of the way, just to let you know, you are muted. We will provide access to this recording shortly after the webinar finishes. Throughout the webinar, we absolutely encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A box, and we will try to answer those at the end of the session. So without further ado, the agenda. We are talking about, obviously, the market today, giving you a look at MDR Foundations, our new service offering from BitDefender MDR, a little bit on pricing and packaging, a little bit more on when we are actually launching Foundations, and some key resources and contacts you can utilize. All right. So part of the reason I really enjoy what I do is because I get to talk to customers and partners all the time. And you know, ramping up to MDR Foundations, Jaden and myself did a lot of discovery calls. I'm sure some of you guys on the call, we chatted with you, and what we heard basically, you know, tech solutions don't work on their own anymore. Little to no security expertise is a constant issue. Skilled analysts are in short supply, and teams struggle to effectively combat threats. Organizations are also struggling from complexity. There's too many tools out there with too little knowledge regarding how to use them. Organizations can't keep up with the increasing attack surface as well as the increasing sophistication of attacks. Alert fatigue. This is I'm sure very familiar for a lot of you guys. There's too many alerts with too little context. Manual alert triage is so time consuming, it's costly, and it takes time away from strategic business initiatives for organizations. Also, cyber insurance. So even before the pandemic, cyber insurers were tightening their underwriting guidelines and asking for more details to better understand the risk they were insuring. You know, once the pandemic did hit, entire workforces who previously worked in a fairly controlled environment started working remotely. They started working from home where security was less controlled. You know, you add that in with the rise of cloud and the interconnectedness of businesses these days, and basically cyber risk is huge. So what organizations are faced with is not only more risk, but insurers have changed their appetite for risk. It's a hard market. And this is reflected in the increasing cost of coverage and stringency when it comes to cyber insurance requirements. Another thing, compliance. Think SOC 2, HIPAA, PSI, DSS. All of these industry standards are required in certain industries, and certain qualifications are mandatory. How do you get those qualifications? You have to have certain technologies to get those. Add in insufficient response capabilities, and this might be the most depressing slide I've ever made. My point is you and your customers are dealing with a lot of challenges, and many of them on a daily basis. And while we were doing discovery for MDR Foundations, we got to hear all about it. So MDR Foundations is the result of these conversations, because we realized that the organizations we spoke to, even if they had an EDR solution, potentially an XDR solution, these problems weren't solved. They just had new problems. And those organizations that are less security mature will struggle without having a solution in place that solves one or all of these problems.
I think when you look at the market itself today, and when you talk about the things that Aaron just covered, one of the areas that helps provide a resolution to a lot of these challenges that organizations are faced with today is the ability to outsource the capabilities to respond to threats in real time and to provide remediation capabilities for organizations of all sizes. What that's led to is an increase in the opportunity for our entire partner community as they look to their customers to talk about the capabilities around MDR and how they can leverage services and outsource these capabilities to other organizations to be able to allow them to respond in a way that aligns to the risk that's out there today. The slide that is being presented on the screen today shows the IDC market size for MDR as you look through 2019 to 2025. IDC is predicting a pretty significant increase in the total opportunity available in the market for MDR services. And what's great news about that is you look across the partner community, and we've talked with everyone on the phone today, this is a significant opportunity for you, not just from a revenue or from a margin opportunity, but also it's an opportunity for you to engage with your customers and increase the value that you're providing to them, either through your own services or through leveraging an outsourced service with a vendor like BitDefender that's providing these capabilities. Last week, I was actually at RSA, as many folks actually on this phone may be. The show has continued to grow. It was probably not quite as big as it was in the past, but as the world begins to return back to normal, it was great to see our colleagues from across the globe. There was a lot of individuals from all over the world attending, and organizations of various sizes. And what was interesting about that was that one of the common themes that we saw at the RSA conference was MDR. If you walk the expo floor and you looked at all the variety of different vendors, you'll see that there's a variety of different ways that organizations are trying to solve the detection and response capabilities that are lacking in the market today. And what was also interesting is that historically MDR, or the conversation of MDR, was traditionally thought of as an enterprise discussion for large organizations, large SOCs, or even mid to mid-large enterprises. This was really an issue for them to solve. What we've seen over the course of the last couple of years, and as the market has evolved itself, and what I saw a lot of last week, was this is really an issue across all organizations. It's not just an enterprise issue, it's a mid-market issue, it's an SMB issue. And in some cases, when you look at the SMB or you look at the mid-market or the low-end enterprise, depending on the capabilities of the organization or depending on the size of the organization, some of the problems that they're challenged with are amplified, right? We look at an SMB, when you think about the ability to recruit and retain talent when they're competing against other large enterprises, or when you think about the fact they may have a smaller team or folks that don't necessarily have security expertise, they're now trying to deal with the hundreds or thousands of alerts potentially being thrown off from detection technologies like an EDR tool or like an XDR tool, and it becomes very quickly overwhelming. It also is a cost challenge when you think about what it takes to staff a security operations center. Threats don't just happen between 8 and 5 PM, right? They happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you need to be staffed accordingly to be able to respond and to remediate those threats as they come into the organization. And so this is no longer just something that was thought about at the large enterprise. It really is an issue that we're trying to solve for all businesses of all sizes. And as partners in the community, we know all of our partners are selling to businesses of all sizes. Some of you may be focused in specific verticals. Some of you may be focused on selling to large enterprise, but there's a large population of our partner base that is also heavily engaged with their SMB customers, their mid-market customers, and they're faced with these challenges every day and looking to you as a partner community to figure out, how do I solve these problems? How do I ensure that I have cyber resilience across my business? And looking to you for recommendations, tools, and services to be able to help them address that gap.
Sure. So let's take a look at where we currently sit in the market. A lot of our partners have been with us since the beginning and know already that our sweet spot is kind of the mid-market. Our MDR service is about 3 years old now, and over the past few years, we've proven very successful at capturing organizations with mid to high levels of security maturity. But in doing so, we also recognized a gap. We were leaving out small and medium businesses who could truly benefit from the 24/7 monitoring response provided by an MDR service. And on this webinar, I know we have partners from all different segments, and many of your prospects are in the mid-market to enterprise space. But we wanted to address the specific gap in the market. When we set out to create Foundations, it was really important that we maintain the integrity of our MDR service. MDR Foundations is not managed EDR. It's not MDR Lite. These are phrases that a lot of our competing vendors use and try to ignore. The MDR Foundations is a veritable MDR service. It is MDR. And with Foundations, we're targeting small and mid-sized businesses with lower degrees of IT and security maturity. Think dental's office, a dentist's office, a notary, your local burger joint. These organizations are primed for MDR Foundations. It's for those businesses that suffer from all of the pain points that I previously went over, and they need MDR. They might not know they need MDR, but they do, but they can't afford it. We're answering that gap. There's immense opportunity for partners in the small to medium business markets to make money and to grow your install base. I think the last stat I heard, like managed security services will account for some 33% of SMB spend in cybersecurity by 2025. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of money for the taking. So there are numerous market opportunities here. And with MDR Foundations, you can take advantage of that immense market opportunity.
All right, so as Aaron mentioned, bringing in MDR Foundations brings our portfolio to 3 separate service tiers. What's really important about thinking about those service tiers, though, is not positioning them based on capability. As Brian and many of our team members, Aaron as well, were at RSA last week, I was in DC at the Gartner Risk Summit. And as we listened to the Gartner analysts talk about MDR, one of the most important things about MDR is that from the very beginning, it has been an outcome-based service. It is not a capability sell. So when we talk to customers about the value of MDR, we need to be thinking about the business outcomes. What challenges are they facing that through the acquisition of or outsourcing to a service, we're really transforming the way that they think about security. One of the probably biggest macro shifts in the last couple of years as it pertains to services is that five or so years ago, vendors were selling technologies to partners like you guys or to end customers and saying that with these new technologies, you would be able to overcome your security challenges. What we found at BitDefender, the reason why we've invested in an MDR service is because we fundamentally believe that it is no longer feasible for most organizations and the small customers that Aaron was talking about to overcome these challenges, the security talent shortage, the limited budget that you have. In other words, acquiring additional technology will not make all of our customers safer. So how will MDR transform the way that security teams for our end customers and for our partners operate? Let's focus on 3 transformative business outcomes. And the first one is to give your security and IT teams more time. When we, as a BitDefender MDR team, onboard customers, we find they save in about 60 hours in various activities that their security teams would otherwise be performing just to keep up with the daily deluge of alerts coming in from their various security tools. Think about alert triage, being able to spend any time investigating the alerts that need to escalate into manual investigation. What about if there's an attacker and you need to contain the threat while they have hands on keyboard? And finally, an area that most of our customers cannot even get near is being able to turn from a reactive component into a team that works proactively. When we talk about hunting, those are really high value activities that most businesses that we work with can never take part in. So think about giving your team all of that time back after just 1 month of engaging with an MDR service. The second piece is about money. How can customers that only have about 5% of their budget on average allocated to security, how can they think about spending that money very efficiently? Building an in-house SOC is something we talk to many larger customers about, and they're surprised to learn that it takes not just them, but BitDefender as well, a minimum of, let's say, $5 to $10 million to even think about building a threat detection and response unit or a modern SOC. Outsourcing allows these organizations to focus their remaining budget on critical hires, people that really understand their environment and are able to collaborate with a security team like BitDefender MDR. It is our mission that organizations are no longer hampered by hiring constraints in order to make themselves safer. And finally, and maybe most importantly, is risk reduction or risk reduction ROI. How do we make sure that with plugging into a service that we're actually safer over time? A couple of really good stats for you guys. When I first joined the BitDefender MDR team, we did a quick audit on how much of our time we were spending from the perspective of analysts either doing activities like triage, investigation, containment versus hunting. And what we found in 2021 is we spent up to 70% of our time proactively hunting in customer environments. That is, I can speak from experience, spending a lot of my time automating different SOCs, not usual. Most SOCs today are just struggling to keep up with, again, that torrent of alerts coming in. In addition, in 2021, our Cyber Intelligence Fusion Cell, our internal threat intel team, issued 7,500 alerts to customers for different risks that were a little bit more proactive. Hey, there was a credential leak with some of your user data exposed in it. Hey, you have some GitHub repositories that you probably didn't mean to have exposed. Hey, we saw some domain squatting case where somebody took your domain and they're using it to pull traffic into what is potentially a malicious site. Hopefully, these are ways for you to start thinking about MDR not just as a purely reactive function, but also one where we are proactively looking for footholds that attackers have set up in your environment. And we are also looking at the way that your brand and the way that your company is viewed by attackers.
So how do we proactively articulate the value of MDR to the market? When you think about the market, it can be unwieldy. And in order to get a handle on that, we suggest partners segment the market into 3 distinct areas. First is MDR by necessity. So this segment is characterized by small to medium businesses that need MDR in order to become cyber resilient. In greater detail, this segment is characterized by businesses who do not have a current in-house security capability or do not have the expertise to purchase one, or potentially organizations that want to do specific work in specific segments that require a demonstration of compliance or other standards, which are only met by MDR. The second segment is EDR to MDR. Now, this segment is characterized by organizations that currently use an EDR tool or solution, but suffer from the lack of knowledge regarding how to most effectively use it. Think of, the alert fatigue I spoke to earlier. And the last segment is MDR by choice. This segment is characterized by organizations, usually in the mid to upper enterprise space, who potentially have an in-house SOC, but want MDR for coverage of their security gaps and/or compliance reasons. In greater detail, this segment is characterized by businesses who do have a security capability, potentially have the budget to build one or augment one, but see MDR as the better choice for a specific requirement they have. Now, with the introduction of MDR Foundations, I'm going to add a few caveats to what I just said. Size is important, but it's important to think when you're selling to your customers, it's important to think about our entire MDR portfolio and focus on the level of security maturity of the prospect. While it's an important qualifier, size is not the #1 criteria for MDR Foundations. It's a good qualifier to look for, but the size of a company does not dictate when you should position foundations. You know, as this graph tries to, you know, relay, it's a little bit more fluid than that. Its size is a guiding principle, but it must be couched in customer need and price sensitivity. There will be cases when it will make more sense to position BitDefender MDR Premium or BitDefender MDR Enterprise to a 100 to 200 endpoint company. You know, think of a highly regulated industry like a boutique VC firm. That is more premium enterprise. So just keep this in mind that yes, size definitely a qualifier, but it is not the end and be all definer of which customer, or excuse me, which prospect should have MDR Foundations.
Awesome. So let's get into, I think, the formal announcement, why everybody is here and why the four of us are really excited to be here with you guys today and share this space. We are here today to tell you a little bit more about MDR Foundations. I want to spend a small amount of time on the name because we've already said it 50 times and why it's so important to us. So as we designed this service tier over the past, let's say 9 to 10 months, we were really paying attention to, again, the specific segments that both Brian and Aaron have already pointed out. We spent a lot of time talking to customers, to prospects, to distributors, resellers, MSPs, and what we eventually resulted in is a set of capabilities that we think really oversells at the price point that we've been able to hit. The most important thing also is that, as Aaron pointed out, the reason we picked the name Foundations is because this really highlights what BitDefender opines, or our opinion is, about what MDR needs to include to call itself MDR. Again, there's a lot of offerings out there that are going to really try to skimp around the edges of what managed detection and response should be. For us, the pillars that you see here are foundational. So let's talk about some of the things that were really important in those conversations that we had with prospects over the last 9 to 10 months. The first one is dead center, 24/7 analyst-led monitoring and response. And if there's one word in that phrase that's most important, you would think it'd be the 24/7 piece. And surely that was really important to all of our prospects. But I think even more importantly than that, the service that we're providing here via MDR Foundations is what we call response native. That means that an MDR service that's simply an alerting layer on top of some base technologies is not sufficient anymore to keep our customers safe. Think about the scenario where it's 2 a.m. and our SOC finds out that there's an attacker with hands-on keyboard that has a foothold within your environment. It is no longer sufficient that we provide you guys an automated email, or really anyone in the cybersecurity community does that, and then does not do their best to contain the attacker. MDR Foundations flips that and says, here are a list of pre-approved actions. If you approve these things, then our analysts are willing and able to respond at any time of the day on behalf of your customers. On top of that, we are able to provide recommendations. How can you make your security posture better over time now that we've been able to contain those live threats? Let's move to the left-hand side. One of the things that we found was really, really important was that a lot of the customers and prospects we've talked to have been using BitDefender technologies for the past, in some cases 10 plus years, 10 to 20 years. And as the roadmap for Gravity Zone itself develops, you can rest assured that the MDR service is taking advantage of all of the goodness coming out of the platform's evolution. I think many of you partners out there are very well experienced, right, at talking about the efficacy of our base technologies, about the way we perform in third-party tests, about the OEM partners that have been using us, again, for decades. All of those things are massive selling points for customers that are looking for consolidation, that don't have a ton of tech debt, and layering a service on top of this best-in-class technology just makes a ton of sense for customers in this segment. Lastly, and probably most controversially, let's talk about threat hunting. So our SOC has been, and our analysts in the SOC, as well as our cyber intelligence fusion cell, have been threat hunting for a very long time. And one very disturbing trend we found was that other MDR services out there started to throw threat hunting into the market as more of a marketing term, when instead what it meant under the covers was that we were simply taking something like a threat feed and then starting to query endpoints on a daily basis looking for those indicators. For MDR Foundations, we've found a way to modify the way that we do threat hunting to be able to leverage the scale of our customer base while still doing what we believe to be threat hunting, which is looking at the entire threat landscape, what we call a global context, and using our knowledge of you guys, let's think about that as local, to be able to form hypotheses about the way an attacker would move, would operate, and then hunt based on that hypothesis. Remember that if that's not what threat hunting means to another vendor, then it's not threat hunting. That's just simply what a prevention piece of software would already be doing, or an endpoint detection response software would be doing. We're going to talk about that stuff in a lot more detail, but there is an important caveat that I wanted to make as well. Not all of our feature development or let's say engineering time over the last 9 to 10 months was focused on capabilities. That's not necessarily the only important thing that we were thinking about as we designed MDR Foundations. We also optimized for minimal friction. So it's not just about what on paper can we check off, but also how easy is it for customers to get started once they say, all right, you know what, I want to give it a shot. And what you see here are quotes that you could see multiplied manyfold across those customer conversations that we had. And I want to highlight a couple of those things for you. The first one was ease of onboarding. People really wanted to feel like security was a light switch, that you could say, okay, I'm signed in, I'm signed on, I'm bought in, and I want to just flip the switch now. I already have Gravity Zone installed, so can the service start monitoring me on day one? The second design principle was ease of the transaction itself. We found that we in the MSP market, as well as a lot of competing vendors out there, were kind of selling we're selling an annual product, one that was maybe designed for a different segment, and then trying to make it match for MSPs. What we've done here is completely turn that around and design for the specific segments that we've already outlined. I'm not going to spoil Rich's fun because I think there's a couple of points we want to hit on later on how we did that. But the third and fourth, and I'm just going to bunch them together, were ease of use and co-interaction and support. We know that this is security is a team sport, as Rich likes to say. We know that you as the partners out there have a lot more context about your customers than we do. So the co-interaction and how easy it is for you guys to know what the SOC is doing on a daily basis and how we're defending our customers was paramount. So we designed for all four of these things. And so please keep these in mind as we continue to talk about what makes Foundations so great. Let me talk about several capabilities. When you're thinking about our current portfolio of MDR products, I will be speaking in response to or with those tiers in mind. The first thing that you can expect from MDR Foundations is intel-based threat hunting. I already described this in some detail, but you can see here there's some examples on the right-hand side of the way that our cyber intelligence fusion cell operates. For instance, in 2020, we released a tipper to our customers about how the FBI was warning US hospitals of large-scale ransomware attacks. You can expect that if you're a Foundations customer in the healthcare vertical, that we would be hunting based on, again, that global context that our threat intel team already has. We are able to do this at scale based on the way that we've designed this service, and we're able to offer not just containment if we find anything, but those recommendations that we've talked about as well. You'll notice on the right-hand side, for instance, hey, we're continuing to monitor certain things, and we'll be letting you know if we find anything over the coming weeks. So you'll see recommendations start to roll in as you enable service. On top of that, probably the other biggest improvement here is the way that MDR Foundations is expected to interact or co-interact with Gravity Zone. For those of you that have customers using our current MDR offerings, we have two separate experiences. There's the MDR Portal and there is the Gravity Zone console, and it's not often that the two meet. In the future, with the release of MDR Foundations, as our analysts are working on cases related to Gravity Zone incidents, you will actually see those things start to get notes and transition into a closed state. That is really key for our customers who, again, have been using Gravity Zone for years and want to see that the proof is in the pudding. Secondarily, we thought it was really important for customers of Foundations that they don't get some watered down form of incident response just because they paid less. So the phrase that we've been using is enterprise grade, and that's referring to our top tier of MDR, enterprise grade incident response. In other words, we will treat any suspected incident with just as much seriousness, no matter how many dollars you've spent on MDR. We've also been able to build in a ton of really cool features into the MDR portal for this release. On the left-hand side here, you see that granular capability to tune those actions. What things will you allow us to take on in the case where there's an attacker with hands on keyboard? That's up to you. You're also able to add notes about how you expect us to interact. Maybe it's something like, hey, we want to, you're okay with isolating hosts, but make sure that you provide, some kind of note to these three people. On the notification side, we provided a net new capability. This does not currently exist in any of our service tiers, where you're able to say, hey, for all of these different activities that the SOC is doing, an incident report, a tipper report, a recommendation, I want to receive it in this way and with this cadence. This is going to be really important to keep you as the partner and also the end customer informed, again, about what we're doing in the SOC. But we don't want to over inundate with all of these kinds of activities. It's important to note that each of these different artifacts, let's say, are important to different audiences. On release, we will be able to notify based on email, and we have a couple other fun vehicles coming up in the roadmap as well. Lastly here, I want to talk about how easy it is to enable MDR Foundations. For our partners that are working out of the Gravity Zone console, you'll be able to enable MDR directly from Gravity Zone. The way that this works is once you click that little slider in the bottom right corner there, all onboarding tasks are done in the background, and you and your customer, so if that's what you'd like, will receive an email link that gives them login instructions to the MDR portal. All billing and provisioning are done on a monthly basis for our monthly customers, and usage is something that you will now be able to see. And this should be huge for our partners who didn't have this level of visibility before. This will be available soon as an add-on service for Gravity Zone. I guess it's also worth mentioning API support for provisioning and billing will be provided as well. This is obviously much more relevant to our monthly side of the business, which Rich will talk to in the future, but this is just one way that we've been able to reduce some of the friction via those 4 design principles that we learned through our customers and our prospects.
So what does Foundation look like alongside Premium and our Enterprise tier? MDR Foundation extends our entire portfolio to address the needs of new customers and different customers. Not a huge fan of the speeds and feeds conversation. Not going to hit on all of these, but I'm gonna address some key highlights. When Jaden and I spoke to customers, of course, mandatory for MDR, 24/7 security operations across the board. That is one of the key elements of our MDR portfolios. The MDR Portal, also available in all tiers. This gives customers and partners visibility into our service. You get to see organizational summaries, incident reports. You get access to monthly reports, our tippers, Flash. It's a great resource that customers and partners can log into and see basically the state of their MDR service. Threat hunting, like I said earlier, a lot of vendors, automate threat hunting and still call it threat hunting. That's not what we do. This is human-led threat hunting in Foundations, as well as Premium and Enterprise. XDR also is available as an add-on across the tiers. And just as a reminder, that includes cloud, network, identity, and productivity apps. So that will also be available in Foundations. When it comes to differentiation and how to think about just like snapshots of how to think about Premium and Enterprise, when you're talking to a customer about Premium, think about customizability and support. Conversely, if you're speaking to a customer about Enterprise, think about advanced threat intel capabilities. It's a really good fit for customers with unique or challenging threat profiles. Another call out I wanted to let you guys know is the dedicated security account manager. So in Foundations, there's a dedicated security account manager during an incident. Premium and Enterprise, there's a dedicated security account manager always. So that's the biggest distinction there. But absolutely feeding questions throughout the 24/7 period. Okay, so this slide is just, you guys know how to sell. It's just a quick reminder on how to start having conversations around MDR Foundations. As I stated, size is a good qualifier. It's definitely not the only thing you should know. Know an organization's level of security maturity, as well as their size. Know if they operate in a price-sensitive vertical. Try to have a handle on the customer's risk profile. Know their pain points. I doubt they only have one. And know what's driving them and where they want to go with their cybersecurity practice, or if they want to develop a cybersecurity practice. The most important thing to do is to listen, of course. Listen to what they're saying. When you're doing discovery questions, it's great to get them to repeat back to you what they're lacking. Don't necessarily say you don't have 24/7 coverage. Get them to realize and admit I don't have 24/7 coverage. It's actually really impactful that way. And as always, be the trusted expert. We're going to speak to a variety of assets that we'll make available to you guys at the end of the call, and utilize these to ramp up on MDR Foundations and really get a handle on what it is and how to sell it. What to say? Don't assume people out there know what MDR is. There's an educational aspect of this industry, and sometimes that's absolutely needed. 24/7 detection and response, robust response capabilities. You always want to articulate that MDR Foundations is also available at an affordable price point. And regarding what to show, I'll speak to this later, but our MDR data sheet, our product page, of course, the MDR portal, it provides great visibility into our service, our MDR Foundations promo video, and as well as our SOC interview videos that are up on YouTube.
It was interesting. We had a really good conversation, or a good question that came in early on, saying if the MDR Foundation isn't a light version, then why would we need to upsell to Premium or Enterprise? And I think that's a great question, and it's part of this conversation that Aaron's been talking about. We're looking at a company's size as a qualifier for what is the right level of service for them. When you think about MDR Foundations, in principle, the service is designed to target the more price-sensitive market that maybe doesn't need the same level of advanced capabilities that other organizations may need. So we're really targeting sort of that 50 to 500 user range. It was interesting. About 6 months ago, I was meeting with Tyler Baker, who runs the cyber fusion cell, the intelligence cell out in San Antonio. And one of the things we were talking about was looking at a customer's profile and understanding their business does provide some guidance on what they really do need from an MDR service. So for instance, if you have an organization that is, let's say 250 seats, if it's just a traditional mom and pop organization, maybe it's somebody that has 1 or 2 franchises, it's not necessarily a brand name out there, it's not an organization that is going to be a primary target for large ransomware groups or for malware organizations or for nation state attacks. An organization like that that's looking for incident response capabilities is going to benefit from something like an MDR Foundations if they're at, let's say, 250 seats. However, an organization, let's say that might be 250 users, that is a unicorn IPO or a unicorn brand out there, somebody that's got a lot of recognition in the media because their organization's name, their brand is well known in the industry, they may be more targeted than an organization of similar size because of their familiarity in the media or in the market, and therefore they may need capabilities that are going to be delivered in our premium or enterprise service, things like more customized threat hunting specifically for them, dark web monitoring, where our Fusion Cell is going to be out looking in the dark web for organizations that are specifically looking to target that individual organization. And so when you think about the size of an organization as a qualifier, also what is the risk to that organization should help to dictate whether MDR Foundations is right for them. So again, if they're a price sensitive organization, maybe they don't have the same risk level as another organization of that size, the MDR Foundations may be more appropriate for them. However, if they have a very high risk, if they're at a very high risk for potential attack or for target attacks, maybe it makes sense to sell them the premium, the enterprise version. Again, a lot of it's going to be based on the risk tolerance or the potential risk to that business, and not necessarily always just the size of the organization. That said, as you can think about, dark web monitoring, you can think about some of the more advanced capabilities of the SOC. Some of those tend to lend themselves to a significant amount of human capital that we're throwing at it to be able to identify potential threats and be able to be more proactive in the threat hunt. And because of that and the cost of that service, we are limiting those capabilities for premium enterprise customers to a minimum seat count. So you may have an organization that's 100 seats that still needs that premium enterprise capability that you're selling to, but we do have a minimum threshold that we will require them to purchase, which would be 250 seats. So that is one small caveat to it. And obviously, when you're looking at somebody that's selling MDR through a traditional value-added reseller or through a traditional channel that's more subscription-based, we're selling the MDR service as an annual or a multi-year engagement versus if you're an MSP, obviously the way you're going to market, how you're billing those customers is going to change.
Yeah, and Brian, that's an awesome analogy. It's on the MSP side of the house, right? We kind of have taken the last 9-10 months to really design this for this crowd of folk by enabling inside of the software, right, inside of Gravity Zone, your ability to basically manage more than just one tenant, right, more than one customer, to make things more seamless and streamlined for you guys. You can see here, it's pretty simple, right? I think this is industry leading right out of the gate. You talk about what are we doing, MDR Foundations for the MSPs. You've got no minimum seat requirement and no length. It's a month-to-month contract, right? So it's a monthly billing cycle that you would go through your distributor or your RMM provider in order to acquire this solution. And the cool part about it is that gap that we talked about, right, with Aaron and Jaden and Brian on the alert fatigue, right, the human problem, right? There's a human problem besides this. Where does it come from? Why is it there? Why did we build this? Or why did we build this? We built it kind of on 3 tenets, right? So security, prevention, the automation. BitDefender does that really well. Like our software rocks. Year after year, you can see it. Our engineering, our product teams, they do an awesome job. Our software rocks. Vulnerability assessment on the hardening and the risk component, we do that really, really well. Like right in the gate, you've got it inside of Gravity Zone. Risk analytics, human risk analytics, it's all there. The problem that we get to is the EDR component, right? The latest term, EDR. We like to say that, the next gen, whatever that is out there. We combine these things together to fill that gap on the alert fatigue and the human problem, or the tired human behind the scenes. And we take that and we basically say, okay, EDR is great, detection's great. I don't really care about detection. We don't care. Like we will detect, but the more important thing is the analytic insight behind the detection. That's where we layer our software into the human component to come alongside you, your partner, your customers. And basically from that, we can assist with our MDR team to come alongside to assist in helping with that threat. So kind of 3 components there that we use inside of the Gravity Zone. So that's, I don't know, it's pretty awesome. It's something new.
One of the other things that we heard a lot about as we offered, historically just the premium, the enterprise offerings from our partner community when talking with you was the challenges that you had around the margin opportunity relating to those products as compared to the other portfolio products, whether it was Gravity Zone Premium or Enterprise or Patch Management or whatever it might be. The opportunity to make margin on it was a bit reduced because of the way that we had the pricing model set up. And we heard you loud and clear. And one of the things that we're really excited to announce, especially with the launch of MDR Foundations, is a change to our new opportunity registration margin for our BitDefender partner community. So whether you're a bronze partner, a silver partner, a gold partner, if you have a new opportunity that qualifies for deal registration and it is MDR Foundations, MDR Enterprise, or MDR Premium, the deal registration margin that is available to you will now be the same as the rest of the products in our portfolio. And so it increases the margin opportunity for our partner community, which we think is absolutely huge. It also simplifies the pricing conversation for you. It helps to make sure that it's an easy and frictionless conversation with your end customers and your prospects. And so we're really excited about launching this, creating an additional value add for our partner community, simplifying the process for you, and helping you to maximize your opportunity within those organizations that you're selling to from a margin and profitability perspective.
So on the MSP pricing side, we wanted to keep this real generic, guys, right? So as our foundational layer into our MDR team and our SOC, SOCs both in San Antonio and also Bucharest, Romania. Again, no term limits, no minimum endpoints. You can start, I can't say the date, can I, Jaden? Have we even said that? Okay. I almost got slapped.
It's coming up on us. No, you're good. You're good.
It's
on the
no
next
restriction for whole estate coverage, right? So the recommended sell price, like the buy price for you guys as the partner, is about $320, right? And that's for the service component of this solution. As Brian just eloquently stated, it meets that need, right? We're seeing the need, we want to fill it. We know that, again, 5% or less is dedicated to security in this industry. We wanted to help come alongside that large portion that needs some type of analyst alongside them at a very cost-correct price point, right, to help, right? So when it does hit the fan, and it always seems like I've got wood desk, when it's 4 o'clock on Friday, we will be there, right, for you, right? We'll roll the sleeves up next year. We're going to be there. We're going to utilize our software, our automation, our EDA detection, and we're going to dive deep into that analytic insights to come alongside you and help. So that's kind of the recommended, the buy price from distribution and RMM.
Thanks, Rich. And I think that's the instantiation of those design principles we had before. And I don't know for those partners on the call here how much impact these differentiators would have, but certainly, again, a lot of our time was spent on making sure that these points of friction, like term limits or hey, you need to have 100 endpoints to even get started, don't exist, because we know that those provide what, from the vendor side, we think of as kind of soft barriers, and on your end end up becoming massive nightmares. So we're looking forward to hearing some feedback from you guys on if ease of consumption is something that we were able to achieve. And no, Rich, you weren't going to get slapped. Here you go. And for all the partners on the call, I just wanted to summarize what you've heard here today. What should you bear in mind over the next month before MDR Foundations launches July 12th, 2022? You'll start to see a lot of messaging coming from the BitDefender side about how this contributes to our company-wide cyber resilience strategy. Remember here that when MDR was first created, when it was first spun out of managed security services, really, that the goal here was that you had to almost assume compromise from day one. I think still we're often thinking about, well, what things do I buy? What do I put in place that makes it so that I'll never get hacked? MDR is there to tell you that if you get punched, in round 6, that you're still going to be fighting when it comes to round 12. We will provide your customers with 24/7 monitoring and response to make sure you're secure all day, every day. In addition, we really want to push on the fact that our threat intel or our risk-based driven threat hunts are things that we can apply across the entire customer base. Remember to think about it from that global and local perspective. This is exactly the same way that we were talking about it with Gartner analysts just this week. It's important to know not just how a customer looks, the kind of information that you guys have as partners, but also what the global threat landscape looks like. And we're privileged enough to have built that cyber intelligence fusion cell to be able to provide that feedback. Robust response. Remember to think about this service as response native. We have 0 tiers that are there to be just an alerting layer. We will provide containment actions when there is an attacker with hands on keyboard. And on top of that, remember that no matter how much you're paying for any BitDefender MDR tier of service, you will receive the same incident response process. Very, very important to us that there's never a time where you guys are in danger or your customers are in danger and you just can't reach a human. We'd be remiss to ever put you guys or your customers in that kind of situation. And then lastly, as I mentioned, ease of onboarding. Can customers begin monitoring their endpoints as long as their Gravity Zone agents are deployed? Absolutely. We are pushing for our customers to be able to do that in less than a day. No matter what the scenario, as long as they have our technologies deployed, our service is striving to begin monitoring them immediately. Secondarily, it's a full turnkey service. Honestly, this is really something that every MDR should provide, but I did see a question in the chat about SOC as a service. You will see other MDRs out there that are kind of more about ingesting logs, kind of like a hub and spoke model. That's not at all what you're getting with MDR Foundations or any of our service tiers. It's about leveraging the best in class technology that BitDefender has been building for 20+ years and providing you with a full turnkey service from deployment to activation to protection. And with all that said, I'll just reiterate one more time. We're about a month away, a month minus 3 days away from launch. We are hugely, hugely excited. And I want to pass it over to Aaron to talk about all of the supporting activities and artifacts that our teams will be releasing to you guys, to our partners, everybody on this call, to be able to talk about Foundations with the same level of depth that you've heard today.
Thanks, Jaden. So we didn't want to just end the webinar and send you on your way, like good luck. We have a lot of great assets coming out, and we want to empower you guys to sell Foundations as well as the MDR portfolio. And we're planning on quite a few asset updates as well as new assets that are going to be available closer to launch. We will put those, you'll probably receive emails about them, but we'll also put them in PAN. And this will be around, as Jaden said. The day is Tuesday, July 12th, so look forward to that. Also, we have a launch webinar on that day, so we'd love to have you guys join. And then lastly, if you have any specific questions, you can contact your channel account manager or DISTI RMM partner, and they should have everything you need to know.
There's a lot of good questions in here. I just figured out how to use the chat feature. So just like.
Nice, Rich.
And I apologize. I should have been in here, but there's like, I don't usually use GoToWebinar, so my bad for
Rich,
people. But
since you're in there, do you want to lead the question?
Yeah, Carlos Wagner had a good question. He's like, is there German, right? What native tongues can we speak or bilingual do we have access to, Jaden or Aaron?
No, it's a good question. So our service is delivered in English. We have several relationships right now with MSPs where the MSP speaks English and is able to kind of proxy with their end customers. And we are comfortable with that scenario. But it's worth noting, we don't have any direct language translation from our SOC to, say, a customer. So English is currently the language that we deliver in. And yes, we are a little bit more flexible about working with partners who offer that level of translation services.
Will we be adding French, German, Italian for the EMEA crowd?
Unless you want me speaking bad French, no, we currently don't have that.
This is an important one. What is the difference between MDR Foundations for MSPs and what I found on your website, BitDefender Managed Detection and Response for MSPs, Expert Advice and Expert Response?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that, and then I'd love it if Rich jumped in too, because Rich has been here, for really that whole saga. From my perspective, advice and response represent a part of our journey where we're trying to leverage that really enterprise grade managed detection and response function that we built and then just say, hey, MSPs have a need for this too. So we produced a lot of friction in coming to market with advice and response. Let me just talk about two perspectives. The first one is we did have a theory back then that advice, just being able to pass on feedback like an alerting layer would be something that customers would want. And we found that to not be the case at all. In addition, we did have a lot of friction in the way that our MSPs were consuming and then how they would get billed. So there's a lot of like, I guess let's call it BitDefender backend process that wasn't very transparent. Because a lot of that stuff can be managed out of Gravity Zone. Rich, you want to talk to how that's...
I was going to say, so what we did is we went back, we launched it. It was a great service once you got to that. Going from a very automated platform, right, and very automated software to get to the service component, that middleware wasn't solid, right? So we launched it. It was, again, if we got you to that component, awesome. So what we did is we went back, Jane and Aaron, the team went back and we retooled that component to really meet that need, both on the price level, the service level. We added some things that you'll get that you wouldn't get from advice or response, but to the handoff, right? It's the handoff from going fully automated service to that, or software to the service component. That's really what we refined. So, and again, if you have more details, anybody on here, there's a lot of questions. Daniel's got a lot of questions, and I'll pick a couple of them real quick. But again, if anybody has questions, just reach out to us and we'll do a one-off with you. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, looking at some of the questions, there's a handful that I think I can probably answer, or at least provide some additional guidance on. It'll check off a few of these, but one of the things that came up was, what are the prerequisites for MDR Foundations? And the reality is that, again, MDR Foundations is designed to address a user's organization from 50 seats to 500 seats. When you're deploying MDR Foundations, just like deploying MDR Enterprise or deploying, MDR Premium, the prevention capabilities, the agent that goes along with it, is going to be included in the price of that product on the annual and subscription side. Obviously, if you're on the MSP side, it's an additional checkbox, an additional service that you're adding. But if you're selling it in an annual subscription or a 3-year term, when you sell MDR Foundations, it will contain the equivalent of the Gravity Zone Enterprise product, right? Similar to the old Ultra product. So the software is included when you sell the Foundation SKU, just like when you sell the Enterprise or the Premium SKU. What it doesn't include, it does not include the XDR add-ons. And so there was a question about, what are the XDR add-ons? Today, there's 4 XDR add-ons, modules available: network, identity, O365, right? So we have a variety of different XDR add-ons that provide additional telemetry data that we can capture, that we then leverage as the MDR service. Or if you don't have the MDR service, obviously you could sell the add-on to capture additional telemetry data for your customers. So the thing to remember is XDR is not included. There is no prerequisite other than for us to have MDR Foundations, MDR Premium, or MDR Enterprise. They do need to use the Gravity Zone agent. This is a service that's delivered via that software. You cannot use this with a different endpoint vendor's agent, right? This needs to be agnostic to, or needs to be aligned to the BitDefender software. So hopefully that will answer the question around prerequisites as well as XDR. The other piece that came up is you were talking a little bit about sort of the global audience here. Number one, from a pricing standpoint, that please reach out to your channel account manager, your distributor, your RMM for in-country pricing. We obviously will have pricing on July 12th when we go live with this. Pricing will be generally available in all of our markets based on your price sheet. So please make sure you're reaching out to your channel account managers, distribution and RMM specifically for those. You'll get those in the localized pricing. Also, from a global perspective, one of the other questions that came in is, hey, what about the SOC? Where is it? We are a 24/7 operation, and while we do, I did mention the San Antonio SOC, we do have multiple locations or security operations centers globally that allow us to leverage that follow the sun model. So we have a security operations center in EMEA as well that works in conjunction with our security operations center in the Americas. So we work as a team, as Rich says, right? Cybersecurity is a team sport. Those security operations centers work together. And so there is an opportunity for that data to be stored in EMEA as well as those security operations centers, though. However, we do have that capability on both sides of the pond.
Holy, there's a ton of questions. We could probably go an hour with questions. This is fantastic, you guys. I really appreciate everybody asking. I don't think we can answer them all, but again, reach out to us on here, and what we'd like to do is maybe set up a one-on-one with you. Again, this is channel driven, right? This is going through distribution or RMM, both on the annual component for foundations or the monthly MSP component. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions. Brian just answered. San Antonio, Texas is where our global SOC operations center is located. Beautiful building. Somebody asked, what do our security analysts look like? You ever see the Matrix where they have it plugged in? They never get up. They're just there constantly. Just kidding. No, they look like people.
I'll tell you, there's at least one guy with a man bun that's much prettier than mine. There's at least one of them.
I guess, can you answer this question, Jaden?
Yeah. Sure,
what are they made up? Former military, former, you can't really say former, always military, all police force agencies. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're made up of.
I can answer this. I just also, one of the things I wanted to mention was I was so surprised last week at the Gartner Risk Summit. The talk track that dominated everything else was you guys are seeing a major macroeconomic shift in the way that security talent is being retained right now as they're offloading from other companies that have, consolidated staff like ours, and how that will impact the cybersecurity, I guess, like talent pool, right? So you have some people being added to the talent pool, and it's still not going to be enough once you distribute them. Our staff, and one of the smartest decisions that BitDefender made was to be positioned in San Antonio. And to Rich's point, the reason was because a lot of the folks in there share the same seriousness towards cybersecurity because they come from a military background. Just to speak briefly about our cyber intelligence fusion cell, we do have Air Force experience in there. We also, though, have folks with vendor experience in dark web, which I think is a really key aspect to the way that we perform our threat intelligence capabilities. But overall, the thing that, Aaron, I think you and I have heard 100 times, if you ask, our teams, what makes you you, they'll talk about being battle hardened, and they won't use those words. What they'll say instead is, this is just every day for us, and it's been every day because of the way they've been performing military ops for the past few decades. And they'll say standard ops, and I love that. I love hearing that. What's the update for this week? Well, we've had 50 emergencies, but that's standard ops, right? And that's the grade of talent that you guys should expect to be collaborating with.
I love it, Jaden. Like, okay, if I'm going to go fly a plane across the country, do I want somebody on day one, or do I want someone who's this standard every day? I just get up and fly through the lightning. I don't care.
But yeah, I just I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're over. Yes. So thank you to everyone who joined. We have a lot more coming out. Stay tuned. Hop on our launch webinar July 12th.
Reach out to your channel account managers. They all are obviously very familiar with this service, so they can answer a lot of the questions as well. If we don't have the answer, or they don't have the answer for you, we'll make sure and get it to you. But I think we answered a lot of the questions. Some of them are, I think we got the bulk of what we had here at least covered. So if there was something that we missed, please reach out and we'll make sure and get the answer.
The one key point I want to say is, what are the prerequisites, right? On the MSP side, you have to have that MSP core agent, advanced threat security add-on, and EDR turned on. And then we've got that line of sight into that file for that tenant. So that is the prerequisite. And I love Dieter's comment, and maybe we end on this. He says, lots of laughs. I'm already selling MDR, so go Dieter. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you all of our partners globally. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. Reach out, ask questions. We'll get to you.
Peace.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you need to contact us for further information, you can reach us on the website that's going to be in the description. You can also contact us on our live chat service. You can contact us on the YouTube comments. We'd be more than happy to assist you. You can reach us at acs@cyberservices.com, and the contact numbers are +44 for international dial, and that would be 1704 893 447. You could also reach me on my mobile at 07494 027783. If you need to contact us on any further information about webinars or demos, please let us know, and I and one of the team would be very happy to assist you. Thank you. But please note that when you are coming to us with regard to an educational request, Please also send in some form of identification, or if you're a member of staff, say the IT administrator, please send in a letter from the head teacher with a manual signature so that we can apply an educational discount. But please be aware that you may have to buy so many licenses